Rabbi Eisenstad, such a pleasure seeing you and seeing you even sitting at this wonderful happy holiday of Sukkot
Good
in
morning, Rabbi
our
Katzin. Thank you.
Sukkah. So both of us sitting in our own tents, in our own Sukkot. And of course, I want to speak with you today about COVID and community and about us, Young Russian Jewish Organization RAGE and Manhattan Beach community working together. But first of all, I wanted to introduce you to our viewers. Can you please tell us about yourself?
Well, first, I'm a very good friend of Rabbi Katzin, so that's the most important. And of course, of RAGE. My name is Akiva Eisenstad. I live in Manhattan Beach, Brooklyn. And about myself, I live there with my wife, Abigail, my 5 wonderful children. I am the assistant rabbi of the Shtibel, Congregation Shari Torah, under the auspices of Rabbi Moshe Fluchak. I've lived there for 15 years, and I've made so many wonderful and great friends there over the years, especially through the RAGE program and through knowing Rabbi Katzin. Anything else you want to know?
First of all, I want to ask you, how's Rabbi Fluchak feeling today?
Baruch Hashem, every day he's getting better and better. The inquiries from so many people in the neighborhood, from left to right, up to down, it's been so, I think, inspiring to me and such a big encouragement to the Rav and to the community as a whole. So thank you.
I want to tell you that yesterday we had a Flatbush Community Rabbis conference about that very issue of COVID and community issues. And we were praying for Rabbi Fluchak to get better. So he's soon to be released home?
I hope so. Very soon. That's the word on the street.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the good news. And of course, our warmest regards, and most importantly, refuah shlema, full and speedy recovery. And just before moving forward, I know that you're a very humble person because your introduction was so brief and humble. But I know that you have MBA from Johns Hopkins University.
Yes. I went to Ner Israel Rabbinical College in the, I guess, from 98, 2004. And while there getting a rabbinical degree, I also got a Master's of Business Administration at the famous Johns Hopkins University.
And besides being an assistant rabbi and Rosh Koilel, which you prepare the leaders for next generation, and many of your students became famous rabbis or very important people leading communities. And I know that you're personally involved in the lives of many of my students, and I really appreciate so much, your help to them. And some of them actually, I know that actually are sick currently with COVID, and I know that you're helping them very much. Thank you. And what else do you do? Because I know that you're very much in chesed as well. You're helping people to get jobs.
That is true. I would say over the last couple of years, I have gotten over 40 people jobs at companies that they've stayed for the long term. And recently, I've met several very wonderful people, and we're starting an organization called the Parnasa Exchange. And basically what it is not only a jobs board, like for Jewish people, where the employers and employees can meet and see if they're good for each other. It's also a website that's going to allow people to network. So if you know an accountant, and I know of an employer that needs an accountant, and I do actually, Rabbi Katzin can give my number. I know a real estate firm looking for a bookkeeper ASAP. You as a wonderful friend are able to network for your friends. The website's going to go live, and what it does is through artificial intelligence and through automation, it lets anybody scale. So if you are a recruiter, if you are a networker, if you're someone who wants to do chesed and find people jobs, it's an absolute free site that's going to be launched and allow you to help people find jobs. And just last week, I was telling Rabbi Katzin that I personally found 2 people jobs, one in the construction industry and one in the nursing home purchasing industry. And the employers are happy, the employees are happy, they have a well-paying job, and Mitzvah Hashem, it should be for the long term. And this is going to change the face of the game. It's free, it's a chesed, and it helps people. And it's Mitzvah Hashem going to be a wonderful tool to get people back on their feet.
not only it's a chesed, but it's the highest form of chesed. In other words, it's the highest form of charity
Yeah,
because you can.
The Gemara, exactly, Rabbi
Please,
Katzin. The Gemara in
please.
Ksubas tells us, that the highest form of tzedakah, of charity, obviously we all love giving charity, right? So you can help somebody buy food for Yom Tov or for Shabbos, or you help them buy clothing, whatever it is. We have to help our fellow people all the time. Anybody that needs help, we have to help them. But the highest form of charity is getting somebody the ability to help themselves, and that's what the Gemara says, and it's very, very true.
Thank you so much for doing all that, and I'm sure that many things are still in the background. I have to also send special regards to your father-in-law, Rabbi Dr. Reich,
Sure.
who is a pillar of not just Manhattan Beach community. I have to tell, I am his humble student. I read his articles, his book, and
right. He started writing articles for the Kollel Shtibel. We're publishing now for the 12th year, starting soon. And for 10 years, or now for 12 years, he wrote every week, and he published a book, and I hope he'll publish many more, because his writings, as you know, are insightful. They're full of wisdom. I think his book is called Heaven and Earth. You can get it on Amazon, or contact me, I'll get you a discount. But it's very well worth it.
I believe that it's something like no nonsense talk about Judaism, no? It is very straight, no? It is so from heart to heart. And it's also something very rare. I heard that Rabbi Yaakov Kabinetsky, one of the greatest rabbis, said once to a friend of mine, an elderly gentleman who was actually a grandfather of my son-in-law. He said to him that the most important quality of a great leader is to be normal. So I have to tell you that Dr. Reich is very normal. And
he's my father-in-law.
Well, I'm telling you that I really ask him when I have a question about, like, what do you think about COVID? What do you think about the right policy? What to do with shuls? I'm calling Dr. Reich, who is a Harvard University Medical School graduate, one of the best eye doctors in the world. And I ask his opinion. So, but right now, I wanted to ask your opinion. What do you think about COVID-19 and community? Because it's so controversial. So many people asking questions. So many people are watching us right now.
What's the question? Should people be safe and to wear masks? Absolutely. Should people follow guidelines and be considerate of others? Absolutely. What's the question? So many questions. Everything's so unclear. So what exactly is your question, Rabbi Katzen?
I believe that many of our viewers will share my question or my opinion. I see some people, Jewish people, not complying. Is it my imagination? Or it's just my, whatever it is, I need to go to eye doctor.
Yeah, we all see it. And I think from your interview yesterday, and I agree, what's going on in certain communities is a Chilul Hashem. It is the minority of people there, from what I understand from my discussions with the NYPD and from other Rabbanim. But it creates a very bad impression in the eyes of the of people that are, you know, not Jewish, even people that are Jewish. It's protests, and although non necessarily violent, is not necessarily going to leave a good taste in anyone's mouth. Obviously, we have to understand, and I'm not defending anybody here, we have to understand that people are going through a very difficult time with loss of jobs, loss of income, loss of family, kids not going to school, but people have to react in a civil way, a nice way, a good way. What that way is with our current wonderful administration in New York City, New York State, and that's sarcastic, I don't know, because they're not necessarily acting in also the civil way. They're pointing, again, this is my personal opinion. I'm not a politician, but if New York State and New York City, you know, sort of focuses on the Jewish people versus, you know, people protesting in the street for other agendas and not condemning them and condemning us as Jews, it is difficult for us. We've been through a lot over the years. So what the answer is, I can't tell you. What I do tell my children and tell people in my neighborhood is that everything's confusing, everything's unclear. And just for myself, I tell this to myself, and I guess I could share it with your viewers, and I hope it makes sense, is that we have to act as good people and be considerate to everyone around us. We have to create our own Kiddush Hashem. If you're out on Chalamod Sukkot, which is today, and tomorrow Hoshana Rabbah, and during the holiday, and you know, and you create your own Kiddush Hashem, your, you know, blessing of God's name in this world, you show people that you are considerate, then, you know, in your families that, you know, are observant or not observant to the people around you, it can be a very powerful thing. If you tell your children, be proud of your Judaism, no matter what they say in the news, it's a very powerful thing. We have to reach into ourselves on a personal level, I believe, to our own selves, to our own families, to our own students, to our own friends, and be prideful of our Jewish heritage. It's not what you see on the news screens that is the definition of Judaism. It's what you're doing in your whole life. And to take it and look at it and to say Jews aren't good is a horrible thing for ourselves and our children, because they have 24/7 access to the news. And the news anchors aren't exactly, you know, friends of ours necessarily when people are acting this way and doing things in the streets that don't show us in the best light possible.
So first of all, thank you again. And when you call or define Kiddush Hashem as honorable behavior on the street or in public places, what is that concerning COVID-19?
What actions? So
in other words, are you telling us to wear a mask? That's I'm asking you. Are you telling us yes to wear a mask?
I want to say something very nice. This past week, I was able to go finally out, and I took my kids to the beach just a day ago, whatever, a day and a half ago, and I saw hundreds, if not thousands, of beautiful Jewish families on the boardwalk near Coney Island, near their aquarium. And they were, I would say 95% wearing masks, and they weren't around anybody else, excuse me. And they were playing so nicely. It was, I think to myself, one of the biggest Kiddush Hashems. It was a beautiful Yom Tov holiday excursion of families. I don't define it by masks. I define it of everyone being nice, everyone being considerate, everyone showing everyone else that, yes, we wear masks. Yes, we are compliant. Yes, we do care about your health. Yes, we do. And whatever they show in the news is not necessarily an image of all Jews. And if people go ahead and focus on Jewish people not wearing masks and show that in the news, then that's not necessarily every Jewish person in New York City, New York State.
And what if there are people that don't believe in it, for whatever reasons it is, or say already had COVID and I don't care, you know, I'm not spreading anything, and I have immunity and I have antibodies, and
listen,
I don't need to live it.
We live in America. America gives everyone the freedom of choice, but you know, like a famous court case many years ago, you can't scream fire in a crowded theater and not be you know, liable. I don't know what to say. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a policeman. I can't police everybody. Everyone has to make their own decisions, but their decisions do reflect on people around you, do reflect on yourselves and your families and all the Jews that do live in the great nation of America and the great state of New York. So you have to realize that everyone has to realize that their personal actions, no matter what the rationalizations, does have an effect and does have an impact. So it's really beyond, at this point, it's really beyond the individual. So if a person had COVID, has antibodies, they should speak to their medical professionals to see what to do. But from a public perception perspective, yes, one does have to realize that the impact is far greater than just their own personal decision.
So we just missed a few words. You said, but from the public perspective, if a person not wearing a mask in a public place,
I think, again, personally, I think from the public perspective, our personal actions will affect beyond ourselves. So if a person does have antibodies, or again, I'm not giving medical advice. If a person does have antibodies, if a person does have their own rationalizations, they don't look at masks, for whatever it is, I can't, you know, you have your own personal decision to make. But even if it's correct, which I don't know if it's correct or not, a person's personal rationalizations, it does affect the greater body. It does affect the greater perception of Jewish people in particular. It does affect everybody at this point.
Because when the media will take a picture of that person walking on the street and put it in New York Times, saying, look at these Jews, they're not wearing masks and they don't care about your health. It's not written all over his face. I have antibodies.
Right. Of course. Of course.
What about the shul and Simchas Torah? We understand there is a wonderful holiday when we usually dance together and we have Torah with us. We have the scrolls and Torah, and we really spend the entire day of dancing and joyful, prayer. What is, the plan in your shul, in your community?
Our shul is at this point not open inside. There are minyanim outside. And for Simchas Torah, the plan at this point is to have 2 or 3 separate, smaller minyanim, so people could daven in a quorum of 10 men, which a lot of people do want to do. And Baruch Hashem, a lot of people did test negative, and a lot of people are over, over COVID. So, 14 days quarantine, and they are wearing masks even outside. That is a requirement to wear masks. We've asked people to wear masks and be considerate of others' safety. I don't think we're going to have the grand barbecue or the big kiddush as we usually do. It doesn't conform with safety protocol. But we're going to try to have the Simchas Yom Tov. Not always has it been easy for Jews to celebrate. I'm sure you could tell many stories of Jews celebrating Simchas Torah in, the worst of times, whether it's, from the Crusades to the Middle Ages to the, to the Inquisition times, to Tachvatat, to modern Jewish history, and to the Holocaust and the camps. There are a plethora of stories of how we celebrate. And as Jews, we are prideful of our mitzvos, of our holidays, of what we need to do as Jews, and we have to do it in the best way possible and the safest way possible.
You actually raised now a very, very powerful question that I wanted to ask you, because some people say happiness is what happens to me, right? Happening to me is happiness. But what you said now, that happiness is actually a mitzvah, a commandment. Therefore, it is a choice. And we celebrate it in the way we had to make a decision to be happy under any of the circumstances. So we have difficult circumstances of pandemic, and we still have a mitzvah commandment to be happy. And now, as we speak, it's a Zman Simchaseinu, it's time of our happiness. What would you suggest our viewers and listeners to learn, not just for this holiday, but for life in general? To be a husband, you need to share happiness and provide emotional support to your wife and to your children, regardless of your personal mood. How can you choose to be happy?
That's the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is written so eloquently in the American Standard. I can't tell people how to be happy. Person has to feel fulfilled. The person has to have a mission in their life, a mission statement. Going back to the first question, what's the mission statement to the Jews nowadays in America and Israel, all over the world? I think it's to show a proud Jewish nation, a safe, proud, good, observant, as much as we can, Jewish nation. What's our mission statement? Our mission statement is to be prideful of who we are. Now, how do we know who we are? We have to learn who we are. We have a person who doesn't know what a Jew is, so you have to learn what a Jew is. If you have to learn the Torah, you have to learn Jewish law. You have to learn from Rabbi Katzin and Rage who we are as a Jewish nation. Maybe, perhaps I could suggest that if a person would like to look into who we are as a Jewish nation, wants to sort of educate themselves, educate their families, to inspire themselves, perhaps that could lead to a very strong mission statement of who we are, and then feel a sense of fulfillment. I can't tell people how to be happy. That's one of the big American questions, how to be happy, without getting too much into it.
I think you did. You did.
Okay.
I think you did in the most amazing way, because you said it's about fulfillment. And I think that you echoed the words of King David, who said, Ivdu es Hashem besimcha, which probably one of the most misunderstood statements. He said, serve God with happiness. And many people think, oh, when I serve God, I must be happy. No, that's not what he meant. He meant when you serve God, not yourself.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
When you serve the community, when you have a mission, when you have a purpose, then happiness will be a byproduct.
You remind me of a story. I don't know how much time I have left, but you remind me of a story.
Please.
There's a famous story. There was a Rosh Hashiva, a very famous rabbi who spoke at a a person's bar mitzvah. He gets up and he brings down the famous Yiddish dictum of "It's schwer zu sein a Yid," which means, in Yiddish it means, oh, it's so difficult to be a Jew. And for many, many decades, centuries, it was difficult to be a Jew. It was difficult for a Jew in the earlier part of the 20th century to be a Jew and keep Shabbos in America and have a job. It's schwer zu sein a Yid. It's difficult to be a Jew. And he was belaboring that point. And then Moshe Feinstein, Zatzal, the great posek of American Jewry, first Russian and then American Jewry. He lived in the Lower East Side. He was Moshe Feinstein was a giant. And he got up and he says, after this first rabbi spoke, he said, no, he's wrong. And this is very uncharacteristic of Rabbi Feinstein. He goes, no, the first rabbi is wrong. It's not difficult to be a Jew. It's geschmack to be a Jew. It's so happy to be a Jew. And I think the point that Moshe was trying to make, even though the first rabbi had a historical perspective, was you can't educate your kids. You can't educate yourselves that it's difficult to be a Jew. And Baruch Hashem, in America, it's so far in the last decades, it's easy to be a Jew. We have choices. We have internet and Daf Yomi and Rage. We have so many of the options open to us as Jews of how to educate ourselves and how to learn Torah and how to learn Daf Yomi and how to shake lulav and esrog anywhere we want, to put on tefillin and do all the mitzvahs. It's easy to be a Jew, but it has to also be geschmack. It has to be have to have that sense of fulfillment to be a Jew. You gotta, and that sort of keeps our Jewishness alive for the decades and for the generations to come.
It's perfect. You also added now a point from Reb Moshe, who repeats this in his writings, that we should never say it's hard to be a Jew, but rather celebrate who we are, which I'm sure it's true for any religion or any ethnicity. And what you brought out now is the power of perception. If you perceive yourself to be an unfortunate failure, you will act like one, right? And if you perceive yourself, correct? If you perceive yourself as a successful and honorable person, you will act like one. So it's about power of self-talk as well. But now I wanted to share with our viewers exciting news. We really would like to work with Manhattan Beach community in a more cohesive way, I would say, in a more systematic way. We would like to bring more classes, more programs, and we really suffering from the fact that COVID doesn't allow us to do many things in person. Therefore, maybe this program is the first one to, like an icebreaker, to introduce Rabbi Eisenstad and the community to our community, to create a bridge. And this bridge actually exists already for many, many years, because many of my students, many of our students ended up in your community, and they're so happy. And can you maybe share a little bit of what is that to, let's say, move to Manhattan Beach, or even if someone lives in Brighton Beach and it's a walking distance, or even in the Shipshead Bay, it's also walking distance, and they come to your congregation of Shari Torah. Am I right? It's called Shari Torah?
That's correct, yes.
What they will find, it's not the most, how to say, the largest building there. There are larger buildings, right? And somehow these larger buildings are pretty much empty. Correct? Empty.
Yes.
They have plenty of space, and somehow your small place is booming. There is no room, not only to sit, almost to stand, and people want to come. Why do they want to come to you?
Well, first of all, as you started off, our rabbi, our Rav, Rabbi Moshe Puchak, happens to be you said it's not a big building, but it has a big heart. It has a big lave, a big heart, and that starts in the top. That starts with our Rav, Rabbi Moshe Puchak, Shlita, who I'm his assistant rabbi for almost 16, 17 years, and his heart is so large and his mind is so open, and he's helped so many people on a chesed perspective, aspects. He's helped people with tzedakah, with money, with weddings, and with divorces, unfortunately, with bar mitzvahs, with bris, with tefillin, with family structure issues. Baruch Hashem, he's been involved in many people's lives in a good way for so many years, and it starts with him. His lev ivri, his Jewish heart is so open to everybody in the community. So that's first. An institution is the shadow of its leadership. And Baruch Hashem, also, I'd like to add that over the years, we've had a kollel, which is an institute of higher learning for married training rabbis. And the past 2 years we've had, and this year, and for many years to come, we've had a phenomenal kollel, an educated group of young aspiring rabbis who are The group this year is second to none. They're all educated. They all have degrees, advanced degrees in secular studies, whether it's being a counselor, whether it's being a nurse, a practitioner. One of ours, Ramesh Washavsky, is a band leader, and he's a Talmid Chacham. He learns every day, and in the kollel, and he's a nurse also. So we have so many of a amalgam of different personalities of Talmid Chacham who care about their fellow Jew, and these guys are just waiting for people to reach out and waiting for people to come in to learn, whether it's through Zoom, whether it's through personal classes, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's whatever it is. And Baruch Hashem also, I'd like to add, besides that, our families of Manhattan Beach, like you mentioned, all the students that you had at Sinai or at Rage, and they come in and they are part of the community. They're, no matter what stage of Judaism they're in, well, they're here, they feel comfortable. You ask, why are we burgeoning? Why are we booming? There's a certain sense of comfortability. There's no judgment. There's no, and it's meant. There's no judgment. There's no. You come in, with shorts. I don't think you have to come in shorts, but you come in on shorts on the Shabbos, and you're part of the davening. You're part of the kiddush. You could come in however you want. You're a Jewish person. This is a home for Jewish people. It's very simple. So it's the warm heart. It's the families. It's the kollel. Of course, it's the rabbi. And it's just a place where people feel comfortable. Is that a good answer?
I think you just, as a very, very humble person, forgot to mention yourself. I think that you play a tremendous role because you are the Rosh Kollel, and you have an amazing group of people learning under your leadership. They're producing a weekly bulletin, right? Like a newsletter.
It's a 12-page,
wonderful pearls. Correct?
Academic excellence, yes.
Yes, tell us about the kollel. It's rabbinical. We can say it's like a rabbinical college or leadership college, correct?
Sure, absolutely. And these guys are advanced. Right now in the afternoons, every day in the afternoon, they learn Jewish law, whether it's the laws of kosher or the laws of family purity or the laws of holidays or Shabbos. They're learning it in depth, so they're able to answer your questions, and they do. They give online lectures. Just last night, Rabbi Eli Raful, one of our stars, gave a lecture on the holiday of Sukkot. Furthermore, we have a guy, Shmuley Kazman, you met this past year. He had a wonderful program for I'm sorry, I got a phone call. From all different, manners of life. The teenagers came in Friday night. They had, of course, a bowl of cholent, some hot potato kugel, because a happy stomach is a happy Jew, Baruch Hashem. And they learned some of the parasha. They play games, and it was a very big success. We have Matzah Shabbos. We have a father and son or mother and daughter learning program, and they have prizes for the kids, and it's run by our own Mitch Spielvogel, one of the family members. And it's just sometimes we have 50, 60, kids running around shul. It's a shul for the future. It's a shul that has the future in mind generationally.
Yes, I would like even maybe to ask you, mention people like Eric Yankelevich, who's already a long timer, right, by you?
Eric is a good friend.
Who joined
Lenny
his family.
Eric Yankelevich, Eugene Farish. I'm going to leave some people out, and they could be
correct.
Upset.
Eugene.
Eugene, the Mitch Spielvogel. You have so many. Boris Kurdakovsky. You have
correct.
Kamadi. You have so many families. Again, I'm listing what I remember. I'm not trying to leave anybody out, but you have so many families that have found a home here, and they've bought homes in Manhattan Beach, and they settled here, and they're laying roots over here, and they send the kids to all types of yeshivas, whether it's yeshiva of Flatbush, they send to Megan David, they send to Mazel Day School, a homegrown, wonderful community school run by the O'Connor family. You have the Shalamis Day School. You have they sent to Chavetz. All Beis Yaakovs. Manhattan Beach is situated in a place where a person has their educational choices throughout the whole Flatbush, as long as, of course, our wonderful city mayor doesn't shut it down. But the point is that it's a burgeoning community with a multi-generational grandfather to son, daughter to grandchild. And they're sitting there and they're building and laying roots in a community built on Yahadus, built on Judaism, built on the ethics of the past for the community of the future.
You know what? As an outsider, I don't live in Manhattan Beach, but I can tell you how I view your community. Um, when we live in a big city and you're surrounded by hundreds of thousands of Jews, and it's a big city of everyone together, it also creates a sense of isolation. You're very lonely in a big city. It's New York. Manhattan Beach is right here. And you said you have all the benefits, all the schools, all the kosher restaurants, and everything else. But as if you live in a small town, in a small community outside of New York, because it's like an island, right? It's an island in
It
itself,
used
right?
to be an
Kind of.
island attached to the, yes,
It's an island.
exactly.
It's you have a sea, ocean. I mean, you have a beach right near you. You have all the wonderful facilities, unbelievable air, and most importantly, people feel like a family. I think I don't know any other warm and welcoming community as yours. It's maybe like out of town, no? Isn't it?
Listen, I would say it's an out-of-town community with the in-town amenities. I would say it's a very good description. There are many wonderful rabbanim and shuls
Correct.
in many different places in New York, in Brooklyn, in America, of course. Our community, our shul, is definitely special in that way that it just clicks. It's warm, it's good, it's wonderful people. Like any family, we're concerned and we have a kesher, a connection with everybody, and we try to do the best that we can at all times.
Another small, but maybe not small advantage. Uh, there is a more or less consensus that on Shabbat, um, in a big city like New York, we don't carry. There are other opinions which we acknowledge exist, and some people do, and some people say that there is an Eruv, a special uh, tool that permits people to carry. But at the same time, people living in New York feel hostages when they have little children. They cannot
Mhm.
go to their in-laws, correct? They cannot go to their families. They cannot come, and visit their friends when they have little kids that they cannot
Definitely.
walk,
One of the advantages
correct?
of Manhattan Beach is that it has a very good Erev, checked weekly and put up by Rav Moshe Feinstein's Talmud of Shimon Eider and under the auspices of Rabbi Unzduffer. Also, I must point out that there's the Sephardic shul, and with the help of the Shtibel and the generous families of the Shtibel, put up a beautiful mikveh on Amherst Street, which is beautiful and it's very accessible. They have a wonderful mikveh lady, so it's for women only, but it's really a boon to the neighborhood. Thank God. So you have the infrastructure. You're right. You have the Eruv, you have the shul, you have the mikveh, you have even a kosher restaurant now, the Bay Cafe, which happens to have delicious food, and we wish them success. So Baruch Hashem, it has a very solid infrastructure. Absolutely.
So I think that we need to connect the end with the beginning, because in the beginning you said that you also running a tremendous chesed organization or website of finding parnasa, right? A good job. So people moving to your community also have to have good jobs, because it's not a simple place, right? It's not a very simple place. Oh no,
it's
or you do have some affordable housing, so to speak.
Well, again, Baruch Hashem, like you said. First of all, I think the prices are a little bit depressed now, unfortunately, because of COVID. And I'm not saying it's more affordable, but it's Brooklyn prices. I'm not a real estate broker, and people I see, friends of mine have bought. Baruch Hashem, Corbin Place is I would say more affordable and definitely filling up fast with beautiful, wonderful families. And if you want to start, making a homestead on Brighton 14th and 13th and 12th, sure, Matav Manayim, wonderful.
Yes, we
But
do. We do.
sure.
And you mentioned Corbin Place. I have to say that the last meeting when Rabbi Pluchek was sharing with our friends the story of the Corbin Place, can you please share?
I can't say as well as he does, but sure. You can also Google it if I butcher the story. But basically, over 100 years ago, there was a rabid anti-Semite by the name of August Corbin, who was the builder of Manhattan Beach, the nice white building on Corbin Place, which is now a Jewish housing building, was known as the Beach Hotel or the Royal Hotel. It was owned by him, and he didn't allow any Jews into Manhattan Beach. You know, West End Avenue was the main commercial thoroughfare, a couple of nice, you know, churches, and only his friends were allowed to settle. After a horrible accident, August Corbin and his son, who wasn't well, passes away. And Rabbi Pluchik's main point, and I think this is important, is that God has a sense of humor. Basically, a place that was built to exclude Jews now has one of the highest Jewish concentrations in the New York City area. But the point he was saying was also that Corbin Place was named after August Corbin, this rabid anti-Semite, this racist also. And a couple of years ago, the city council wanted to change the name of Corbin Place to a different name, because how could you have a street named after such a horrible person? Of course, people on that street didn't want that to happen because they had to change their mail, and all their the IRS has to change the addresses, and people, it's a big bother. So the city council found a nice African-American nurse from the Civil War named Corbin to rename the street after her. But I think the main point the rabbi was trying to bring out, and he said this many times, is that God's revenge is sweet. God's Nekel Nekamas Hashem. And for a place that was built to exclude Jews and to exclude many people of American society, now has the highest concentration, one of the highest concentrations of Jews in the New York State, the New York City region. And it's a beautiful sight to see mezuzahs on every doorway in Manhattan Beach, most doors of Manhattan Beach. You drive around on your bike, you look at the houses, the mezuzahs are there. On Hanukkah, you see the Chanukiah lit in many windows. It's nice to know that my kids are growing up in such a beautiful Jewish neighborhood. And we really invite everybody to come in to connect as Jews to our little big shul, on West End Avenue.
Such an honor and pleasure speaking with you. And as you said, that God has a sense of humor. We don't know yet, because usually it takes time to understand, right? At the time, people didn't know what was the plan for Manhattan Beach, what plans God had, and how the name changed. So my blessing, of course, to all our viewers, and of course Manhattan Beach community, that all the hardships and all the tragedies that I know Rabbi Pluchik lost his father, and many people, had people ill, that all this pain and darkness should turn into happiness and light, and we should be able to share many more joyful occasions together. Thank you so much.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All the best.
Have a good day. All the best.